1883. Sir Thomas Hayes built a beautiful house on a hill. Then disaster, tuberculosis. For 60 years, the White Plague ravaged Kentucky. The house became a hospital, but to go to the hill was a death sentence. Some of the patients admitted never left. Lois cries for her baby. The creeper stalks the halls. All knew how their journey would end. 154 steps down the death tunnel of the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. How could Sir Thomas have known that he had built one of the most haunted locations in America? Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Good evening. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. How are you guys tonight? My name is Shelley Pruitt. Let me introduce to you my partners in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts.
Hey.
And wow, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. That is what we are going to talk about tonight. Now, Ryan and I have both investigated this location 2 separate times. Did not let us down on either occasion. And Blake, we got to get you there. So Blake is going to be hearing some of these stories for the first time. Some of them we've already told him. So we can't wait to share them with you. Please, if you have questions, get them to Blake. I'm sure Blake will probably ask the question before you even think about it.
Probably.
Waverly Hills in Kentucky is an amazing place. And it is truly one of those that if you get the chance to go, that is one, if you are a paranormal investigator, remotely interested in the paranormal, if you just like history, that is a place you need to go. If you didn't believe in ghosts before you walk into Waverly Hills, you will by the time you leave.
Absolutely.
So Ryan, tell for anybody who hasn't been to Waverly Hills or doesn't know much about Waverly Hills, tell them a little something about it, because you are my human encyclopedia who knows everything about everything. And so dates and times, definitely go to Mr. Ryan. Tell us a little bit about it, Ryan.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, was it Thomas Howe? Was that what it was? I'm sorry.
It was Sir Thomas Hayes. Was the original builder of the house.
Yeah.
You're thinking C. Thomas Howe. Totally unrelated.
Yeah, totally different guy. He found him a plot of land on a hill overlooking Louisville, Kentucky. Built him a nice little house, and his daughter was a teacher, so he built his daughter a nice little schoolhouse too, so she could teach. And they actually named the plot of land Waverly Hills after his daughter's favorite novel. The land, it was like there was a land of Waverly in her favorite novel, and
it was Sir Walter Scott's novels, the Waverly novels was the name, but she's loved that so much that she said, "Hey, can we call it Waverly?" And Mr. Hayes loved it so much he was like, "Absolutely, we're going to call it Waverly Hill." What a beautiful beginning, right?
Beginning, yeah,
beginning.
But then, as you know, if you know your American history, the tuberculosis plague hits the United States. And this thing just absolutely ravaged so many communities and homes and businesses in the United States. I mean, back then, I believe it was called consumption, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they called it whenever you died of tuberculosis. But the Ohio Valley, where Louisville, Kentucky sits, was actually perfect for tuberculosis to spread because it's a low-lying, humid area. and people spread it via airborne particles, much like COVID. Actually, people would cough, and someone would breathe in the particles, and they would get tuberculosis. And so there was a lot of need for hospitals and places for these people to go, and
there was no cure.
There wasn't. So actually, so like the Stanley in Colorado was built because for tuberculosis. So people would go and like breathe in the cool mountain air and breathe in that because they believed that fresh air helped your lungs get rid of whatever tuberculosis was causing. So they built Waverly Hills because it's set on a hill outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and there was a nice little cross breeze. It was kind of up away from all the low-lying, like swampier areas. And it was isolated from the town because they didn't want people in town mixing with the population who had this sort of disease.
And the people in town didn't want to mix with them either. I mean,
No.
If I'm not mistaken, Waverly became its own little self-sustaining community.
It was. It's out by itself. Even today, when you go, it's in Louisville, Kentucky, but it's like outside of the city. I believe about a good 15 or 20 minutes in a suburb now. Mm-hmm. And it was so the first hospital that was there was built in 1910. And it housed the people suffering from tuberculosis. And as you know, it became known as a place in the South for people to seek refuge and to go who had tuberculosis, because you think about the South and the Southeast, a lot of it is very humid, very swampy, and tuberculosis would spread extremely easily in these communities. So people from all over the world were going, not the world, but from the Southeast and from the United States were actually going to Waverly Hills to get better. There was actually a military base that was close by, and a lot of people who were coming back from war came back with tuberculosis, and they were also admitted to Waverly Hills. So you had people from all over the place. And so this hospital housed people suffering from tuberculosis, and it had its own zip code. It had a working farm. It had its own post office. It had its own bakery, and it was basically like its own self-sustained little village. And if you went up there to work at Waverly Hills, you stayed there. You didn't come down. It didn't matter what you did. If you were a doctor, a baker, a maintenance person, no matter what, you stayed up there on that hill. And a lot of people did that because they had a true calling to help people. You didn't take that job if you wanted to go out on the town every Saturday night. You know, you took that job because you actually wanted to help people and you wanted to help find a cure to help people get better. And
most of the doctors and nurses and staff that worked there, they did contract tuberculosis and they did die. So it was the absolute truth. Whenever you decided to go up on that hill or you were sent up on that hill, your next exit was down through the death tunnel.
Exactly. Now there were some people that ended up walking out of there later on down the line. Some people got cured, but majority of people that went up there just didn't come back. And this place is 180,000 square feet. The current facility that is up there. It was built in the 1920s because, like I said, there was so much need for this that so many people started going up there. They needed a bigger facility. So they ended up building the one that's there currently. It was built in the 1920s and opened up, and I believe it had 500 beds.
400 beds. 400 beds, I believe, is the number that the last number that I read on it. There is a speculation that perhaps there's some overflow, but it was built for 400 beds. It initially only had 40.
Yeah.
And then because tuberculosis spread so quickly that they were just like, we got to build more beds. And that's where you get this beautiful design of the, I mean, and it's intimidating to walk up to.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is such a huge building. Like you can see pictures of it, but
I've got a picture of it.
Yeah. Like it is, I mean, it is very imposing. It is probably, well, no, we've done some prisons. I say it's one of the biggest locations that we've ever investigated because that place is just absolutely massive. It's 5 stories, including the death tunnel. And it is, I mean, the hallways are so long and the scale is just massive. You can't describe the scale unless you're actually there and you're standing there looking at it. You're just like, holy crap, this thing's huge. Now, when it gets into operation, there were a lot of experimental surgeries performed on people because, once again, this is like in the infancy of like microbiology. I mean, they had some microbiology, but as far as like getting into what really caused some of these diseases, they didn't know what to do. So they were doing everything that they could to try to cure people of tuberculosis
with some very strange Strange. And I'll tell you, the
Mhm.
operating room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ryan, the first time I walked into the operating room in that place,
Mm-hmm.
what happened to me? I started getting sick.
Oh, you started getting sick.
I
Yeah.
couldn't stand in there. I couldn't even get into the room. I
Mhm.
crossed the threshold and here it came and I backed up and they were like, "Are you okay when you take you out?" I'm like, no, just leave me. I'm like, "You don't know me.
Mhm.
Just leave me alone for a second. I'll be just fine." And I stayed out of that room. And when we went back the second time, I couldn't even walk into the room.
Mhm.
I said, "Can't do it. Can't walk in there."
Yeah, it's a very heavy feeling in that room, and we'll get into some stuff that's happened in that room here in a little bit. But yeah, it is a very heavy feeling. I mean, it's hard to describe. Like, it just feels like a pressure on your chest when you walk in there. Some of the surgeries that were performed in there, I mean, they would take people's rib cages out in order to expand their lungs and deflate their lungs, because they thought if they deflated their lungs, that when their body began the healing process, that it would somehow get rid of the tuberculosis. It didn't. And a lot of them, because they didn't have a rib cage, had a permanent like lean. They would be slumped over like this. They couldn't sit up straight.
Yeah, the normal amount of ribs
Mhm.
to take out was 4, but
Mhm.
sometimes they took out as many as 8.
Mm-hmm. And
just
it was
to see if that would do it. And
Lord.
another one that they did was that they would literally do what was called a thoracic. Can't remember the last word, but
Yeah.
basically they would insert a tube into your chest and they would blow into it
Mhm.
to try to collapse the bad lung and let nature reinflate it,
Mhm.
because that would, for some reason, push the sickness out of the lung.
Mhm.
What?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there was a doctor, and he knew. I mean, he got tuberculosis, and he volunteered himself for that surgery, and he knew he was going to die, and he ended up, it was like, let's try something, let's try anything. He ended up dying from it. There were several doctors that did that. They even did shock therapy in order to try to like burn it out of people's lungs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean, and you think about it, it's not that they did it with any ill intent. I mean, even
Right.
though it's a very grisly practice and it's a very grisly thing to think about it, but in the name of medicine, a lot of like crazy things have been done in order to try to figure out, hey, how do we beat this thing?
But let's be very clear. Waverly Hills was the place that you wanted to be.
Exactly.
They took good care of their patients.
Mhm.
They had these beautiful verandas that
Mhm.
whenever you see that kind of bat wing look to the building, these are all verandas and porches, and they would wheel the patients out onto the verandas every day to catch the fresh air and the sunshine, and they fed them well, and they were very good to them. So it wasn't like there was some crazy mad doctor running around,
Mm-mm.
hurting people and experimenting on them. They were generally trying to find a cure and were trying to do everything they could. They took very good care of the patients.
Absolutely. And
But
yeah, like
to
you
no
were
avail.
saying, they fed them a very good diet, because that was something else that they thought. They thought rest and a good diet and clean air was going to be what would cure them. And I mean, we know better now. I mean, I mean, for some people it did work, but it wasn't until the 1950s when the cure for tuberculosis was invented that
Streptomycin, I believe.
So they found that cure that, I mean,
One
people
of
were
those
just dying
long
left and
medicine
right.
words. Yeah.
I took a couple of med classes. Then I realized I didn't like blood. So I was out.
I mean, and Shelley, you were talking about them wheeling people out onto the veranda. It didn't matter if it was rain or shine, or if it was 30 degrees outside or 0 outside or 90 degrees outside. They had those people out there on those verandas, to the point there's even pictures that exist, I believe, in the Waverly Archive. You have to go find them, but of people with snow on their beds. Because they were sitting on that veranda. But what was kind of interesting too is they had, like, if you go out there and you're on those verandas, you can see these little like plug looking things. And what they were is where they plugged up their heated blankets. So I think that was the first use of heated blankets in order to keep the people out there. And they also had a little like jack for headphones they could plug in, because they had a radio station.
Yes, they would let them listen to music, wonderful music, and keep them warm. And as long as they got that fresh air in their lungs.
Just
Shelley.
Contained inside of Waverly.
Carissa says, "Don't like blood, but she'll yell at a ghost." So true.
In a heartbeat.
It's like my favorite thing ever on an investigation. Little side note: if you're ever in the room when Shelley is batted with a ghost, it's the best thing ever.
Sometimes they piss me off. What can I say?
Oh man,
Sometimes we have to stand our ground. So
You got to stand your ground.
oh man, I have seen Shelley go to war several times.
I think we all have.
But this place was, like I said, the top of the line care for these people, and they were trying to do whatever they could in order to help these people get better. But even then, they couldn't do enough at the time until the cures came out. But like, it's believed that 8,000 to 9,000 people died in this place, and there were so many people dying at one point that they were stacking bodies on top of each other. They had a person dying an hour, one person every hour dying.
And that was at the absolute height of it.
Mm-hmm. At the
And
very
they
height of the
believed,
pandemic.
this is where the death dome comes in, because they believed that seeing all these people dying was very bad for the morale.
Mm-hmm.
Because Waverly Hills had a real sunshiny outlook. They kept everything very positive, very light, and they thought that it was bad for the morale of the patients to see people being loaded out on ambulances every day and being carted out. So the doctors and nurses begin to secret them in the middle of the night into this death tunnel and down to waiting railway cars where they were taken away.
Yeah, there were accounts of patients who lived there who were just like, one day they weren't there, and you knew when they weren't there, you knew what happened to them. I mean,
But it wasn't acknowledged because that would the patients might lose hope. And hope was the big thing they sold at Waverly.
Yeah, that was the
Hope.
last thing they wanted to do, was to discourage anybody from getting better. You know how it is. If you see people croaking every 5 minutes, you're just going to be like, what the hell? I mean, what chance do I have? So they really they took every step that they possibly could have to make sure these people got better. They actually cared. There wasn't, like you were saying, there wasn't a mad doctor running around. There wasn't, they weren't trying to be, this macabre place, but it just happened to be that way because they were just trying to find a cure the best that they could.
Sorry,
Now-
you guys. I just started thinking about somebody. I'm gonna get it together.
We'll
Okay, sorry.
We'll get there.
It's already
You're gonna be
started.
fine.
Okay, I'll take a deep breath.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go in. We're going to go floor by floor, and we're going to tell you the experiences that we had when we went in there. Now, me and Shelley, the first time we went, we decided we were going to do this 72-hour
Gauntlet.
paranormal gauntlet. We did Bobby Mackey's, we did West Virginia State Penitentiary, and we ended up at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Second time we went, Waverly was first, and then Ohio State Reformatory, then Bobby Mackey's. So we're going to touch on a couple of those locations later on, but we've been there twice, and both times, like Shelley said, it did not disappoint. And we had Stacy and Gypsy with us the second time we went, and that was a whole lot of fun. But what I'm going to start at is going to be the fifth floor. The fifth floor is going to be the smallest floor at Waverly Hills. It is not very big, but it's actually one of the most infamous floors. If you know anything about Waverly Hills, you know that the fifth floor is where the nurse supposedly hung herself. Now, I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to tell you a different story that kind of refutes that story. So we go in, and we're on the tour, and the tour guides take us up there. And they take us to the infamous room 502, where
everybody's heard about 502.
Yes.
502, very notorious.
Yep.
where the nurse was supposedly hung herself in room 502, patient room 502. 502 was a bathroom.
The room 502 does
Yeah.
not exist.
Yeah, it's
502
not.
is literally a toilet.
It was a bathroom at the time. There was a nurse's station in the center, and at the very tippy top up here, these are where your most delicate patients were. These people had tuberculosis of the brain. On the left side, you had your people who were your adults that had tuberculosis of the brain. On the right side, you had your children who had tuberculosis of the brain. And there was a nurse up there who, not the official story, but the story everybody's heard bandying around for years and years and years, there was a nurse named Mary Hillenberg, and she hung herself in 1928 because she became pregnant. And a doctor was actually the one who impregnated her and performed a botched abortion, threw her baby down the sewer, and then the nurse hung herself, and she was found by the maintenance man the next morning.
And that is the legend.
That's the legend.
Now, Brian and I have both seen the infamous 502.
Mhm.
First of all, the plumbing pipes that are in there weren't put up until the 70s.
Mhm.
So there was nothing for her to have hung herself on. So
Mhm.
let's go ahead and let's just take that out.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean something nefarious didn't happen
Mhm.
in that bathroom. But there was no way she could have hung herself in that room. There was nothing to support her weight. There was nothing to throw a rope around it, whatever. There was nothing to do that with. So let's
Now,
go ahead and take that away.
now through investigation. Now, I will say this too, because I was talking to the tour guides, and they did say that a lot of the records for Waverly Hills got damaged in a flood in, I believe it was in like the 1970s. There was a big flood in downtown Louisville, if I'm not mistaken. And they said a lot of records were damaged in a flood. So they don't have a record of this, but through investigation, this is what they believe they have found. They have done enough investigation up there that they believe that there was a nurse who was killed up there, but her name was not Mary Hillenberg. Her name was Sarah. And that it was not a suicide, that she was killed by an orderly, and something else was also done to make it look, something else was also done to her. And that's why people thought she had an abortion, because there was blood in the nether region whenever
Allegedly, she was a virgin.
Allegedly. Mm-hmm.
So it was
Mhm.
it was alleged that was the story that was told, because they
Mhm.
couldn't have it getting out that someone that was employed by them, that was basically stuck on that hill,
Mhm.
was potentially a rapist and a murderer.
Mhm.
They couldn't have that. And
they couldn't have that get out.
And there's a shot in the opening of Ryan doing the Estes method there. And Ryan, you actually, because I was leading it, it was just you and me.
Mhm.
And that, yeah, Ryan was sitting there. And Ryan, did you say that you kept getting a male that did not want you to talk to a female that was there?
Yeah, because we would always, because Shelly would ask, and I kept getting a dude just talking in my ear, like a very deep voice, male talking in my ears, and I just couldn't get a female to come through whatsoever.
I believe he said to you that you can't talk to her.
Yeah,
or
I
she
believe
doesn't
so. Yeah.
want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was speaking for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well then let her talk to me. She doesn't have to talk to Ryan. Let her talk to me. But Ryan's really good at connecting with the females and the children's spirits and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever was there would not let him talk to her, which I found odd.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I believe you didn't get a single female voice when we did that, did you?
No, I don't believe it. I
And
don't recall getting
that's
one.
strange as well.
Mhm.
So he didn't even get a single female voice at all.
Yeah, I don't recall getting one at all. I do remember, like I said, I do remember that voice saying she doesn't want to talk to you, or she can't talk, or we're not talking to you, or something to that effect. And I believe too, also through research, not research, but also through investigation up there, that they found another nurse that had gotten pushed out of a window by an orderly as well, and they think that she may have known about what happened to Sarah.
Damn. So you got some shady shit happening up on the hill then.
Yeah, I mean,
but they just don't want it to get it out, so they're telling all these
No.
cockamamie stories to cover
Yeah.
their asses.
It was better
not.
to smear the woman's reputation
Right.
than
Right.
to admit that this woman who was a
Mhm.
virgin had been raped and was killed and was up there. She was up there working for the most delicate patients, and someone
Exactly.
got her. So it's better just to smear a reputation.
And that was one of the things that they were talking about, like these people who are our tour guides. They were saying, like, think about this. Like, you're a nurse and you want to care for these people. Do you really think you're going to hang yourself in front of children, number one?
Because there were children on that floor.
Yes. Or if they had to have children find your body the next morning.
No.
Or do you think you're going to hang yourself in front of the most delicate of patients who have tuberculosis of the brain and are fighting with everything to live? Because they see something like that. You talking about giving up hope? They'll give up hope in an instant
absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
So, that was what we found on the 5th floor, room 502. Also, there are children that people see up there, and there's the story is there's also a kid named Timmy who likes to play ball up there.
Timmy and Mary. There's a
Mhm.
female as well, Mary.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, they also said that they don't have there very well could have been a Timmy there, but they don't have any record.
They have no record of a Timmy
named Timmy.
So just a paranormal tip: if you're going to investigate somewhere and you know that there is a named spirit, maybe don't call the name spirit right away, because maybe there is a spirit named Timmy there, but Timmy, he's over there sulking in the corner, and when we say, Timmy, come play ball with me, maybe little spirit, little Janie or somebody's over here, and they're like, oh, well, it's not my turn, you don't want to play with me. So maybe don't call a name whenever you first get there. You can maybe say, are these spirits here? But if you do something like rolling a ball or trying to play, any spirit that like come forward, can you please light up the light, or can you please roll the ball? Because if there's one that wants to communicate, well, maybe they're like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to wait my turn. They ain't said my name yet.
Right.
So just a little tip. You don't got to always call a name. Sometimes it's better not to.
Yeah. You try to be as general as possible until you begin to know something. And then when you start to know and you start to get names coming through, then you can address them by name. Yeah.
Talking about knowing something. Are we going downstairs yet?
We're going down to the 4th floor.
Well,
Okay.
hold on.
Okay.
Wait 1 second. So we're saying that all this 5th floor, that yes, I have seen all kinds of different videos and shows and all that stuff where it's the notorious 5th floor. Y'all didn't get anything on other than just some responses on Estes about she didn't want to talk to you.
That was it.
That was it.
But again, either time we didn't get.
Yeah.
We didn't. I
So it
didn't
just wasn't
get
once.
anything.
It was both
either
the times
time
y'all
we
went.
didn't get anything on the 5th floor. And again, other than some responses doing the Estes method,
Right.
I personally didn't get much there. But again, you know what? My not much is what somebody else is like going, holy shit, that's plenty. So
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, depends on when they want to act up and where they want to act up, and boy, do they act up.
oh, speaking of acting up, so let's go to the 4th floor, Ryan.
So we go down to the 4th floor. Now, if you watch any of the paranormal shows or you know anything about Waverly Hills, they call this the most haunted floor in Waverly Hills. That's up to debate. There are several other floors that are pretty damn haunted, if you ask me, but this
It's
one is
Waverly
pretty damn
Hills.
Yeah, I mean, every damn
floor's
floor is haunted.
Yeah.
Now, this floor is where the surgery suites were. And this is where Shelley was talking about, like, because if Shelley, for people who don't know, people who are just tuning in, if Shelley comes across something negative, Shelley will retch. And
yeah, that's a polite way to put it. Yeah, just start
there you
moving.
go.
Yeah. It makes me feel like I'm going to throw up.
And then Ralph shortly after.
If it's really bad, then yes, I puke.
Ralph.
Yes, if it's really bad, then yes, I throw up. Especially if it won't get off me or I don't get out of the room, then yes, I'll throw up. But if I walk into something negative, I get this feeling like I'm going to vomit, and it's pretty intense. I can be like, it's like it's not pretty. It's not.
Now,
pretty.
I will preface this by saying we always say because Shelley claims to not have something, but like I always say, Shelley Sniffer is pretty damn good because
you know what? My ability is like my bra. I'm never sure if I have it on or not. So you can't claim it if it's not there.
So Shelley, now I told her a little bit about Waverly Hills when we were going up there. I read her because I had like a little like thing written down where I had like, okay, here's some hot spots, but I didn't tell her exactly where some of these hot spots were. And so we go downstairs and we go into the surgical suite. We go into this particular room, and Shelley, like I said, immediately starts retching. Now, the story is what happens in these surgical suites. There are headaches reported. People's sides start hurting. There was actually an investigator who was a tour guide up there who got punched while they were sitting in that room. They said there's footage. You can find footage of it. They're sitting in a chair. And they got like punched in the back, and they jump up and they're like, what the hell just happened? And there was another investigator that was with them. And then, there's people who report coughing fits, and they report having weights on their chest when they go in. And that room is just, I can't describe it. It's like, I'm guessing, I don't know if there is something negative in that room, because I'm going to tell you right now, Waverly, pretty benign. Like, even though it's extremely haunted, most of it is, they're people.
They're not going to hurt you.
No.
For the most part, they're not going to hurt you.
Now, I don't know if something negative is in that room, but something
well, if
negative.
You just think
probably,
of all the deaths that probably happen in there.
Yeah, it's probably attracted to that room because you have so much human emotion going on in that whole place in general, but in that room especially, because people, surgery sucks, and people, especially back then, people thinking getting sawed on and poked and prodded and everything,
ribs yanked out,
they're gonna die.
And when I walked into that room, I literally got overcome with feeling like I was going to throw up. My chest started I was literally like holding my chest going, fuck, shit, fuck, shit. You know, I was doing my, and I kept grabbing my head because I felt like I was just like, it was like all of it. It was like all over me. And I'm going, I can't be in here. I'm like, I got to step out. Just like,
Yeah.
Ryan's like, okay. I'm like, just, you know the rule. Leave me alone. You know,
Like,
She'll come around.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like, and this floor also has multiple people who have investigated this place, and multiple tour guides have seen this thing they have deemed the creeper. And they have seen this shadow figure looking thing crawling on the ceiling towards them. And as it gets close, it drops down from the ceiling on all fours and scampers off into a room. So it never comes all the way to them, but scampers off into a room to the side. It gets real close.
Okay, wait. When y'all were telling me about this little creeper thing, this story, y'all said it crawls on the ceiling towards. You didn't ever tell me the damn thing drops from the ceiling on all fours.
it goes to the floor and it
away.
runs.
Oh, yeah.
It runs like a little mouse across the floor. Just,
Yeah.
No.
Like,
now, I do not think that we encountered the creeper.
no,
Although
we did not.
We were on the hunt for him. We're like,
Yeah,
creeper,
we were
I brought
looking.
cookies. Shake, 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 shake,
were
shake. You
looking.
want a cookie? Kind of like when you're calling your dog. You
I'd have
want
been
a
like,
cookie?
they brought cookies. Nope.
The cookies come into play later.
Now, before we tell you that story, I'm going to back up and tell you another story really fast. Now, that place had set up there dormant since the 70s, I believe, because it became an old folks home after tuberculosis was cured. It became a geriatric hospital, and then like in the 70s or 80s, it shut down. And kids would go up there and they would go drinking and hanging out. It's like, everything else. Oh, the abandoned place on edge of town. Hey, let's go party up there, bro. Like all, how some
Because they're
teenagers are.
tough and hard and
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
Let's take our girls in there and be crazy. Let's like try to scare the crap out of them.
Maybe we'll get some. Get out of here.
So there were some guys that had broken in, and there
Awful story.
were some. Well, we'll get to that one in a minute. But these guys they have broken in, and they're on that floor. And I can't remember what decade it was, but there was a caretaker there, or there was someone there, and they run up to that floor because these guys are beating on this door. Now, when you go down the stairs to go onto the fourth floor, the guides will show you just how easy it is to open the door to get onto the fourth floor.
One finger.
It's
One
super
finger.
It's super easy.
That's how
And-
light the store is.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you could pretty much blow on it, and the damn thing will open up. I mean, it's super easy to open. Now the guides come running up, or whatever caretaker was at the time comes running up, and there are these kids like saying, "Please let us out! Please let us out!" And what they had done is they had an axe, and they were trying to chop the door down because they were on that floor, and they said the shadows came for them, and they were trying to get out, and they couldn't open that door. That door was stuck. And the security guard just goes and just opens the door right up and lets them out. And they end up running off into the night because they said the shadows were coming after them. And like, I mean, if you look at this door and you see them and how easy it is to open this door, I mean, even hitting it with an axe, the door should have flung open.
Yeah.
But there's like parts on the door where like it's beat in where you can see where they hit it.
Yeah, you can actually see the imprints from them trying to get out. So just a word note, don't freaking trespass.
No.
Don't do that.
Absolutely not.
Whatever's there will
absolutely
get you.
not, yeah.
You don't got to worry about the cops. Whatever's there will get you.
Yeah. And so that's what's reported mostly on the fourth floor, is people seeing shadows. Now I can tell you, me and Shelly both experienced, I've had paranormal experiences my entire life growing up. Y'all have, even in investigating, we've had all kinds of experiences. But we may have encountered one of the absolute craziest things we have ever seen ever that we have still yet to explain. We can't figure this out. And Shelly, do you want to tell the story?
I'll tell it. So
Okay.
we were in our little group, and of course, me and Ryan. Me more than Ryan. Ryan tends to pay attention and follow along. I start wandering back, and I'm like, I wonder what's down here. I wish they'd hurry up and turn us loose because I want to go see what's down here. I'm like, ooh, I want to go down this hall. I just want to go down this freaking hall, and I'm trying to be close enough. And the guy who is running the thing, he's already got an eye on me. He can tell I'm be a troublemaker, So he comes walking down there towards me, and I'm standing still, and I'm looking down this hall, and he goes, "What do you see?" I go, "I'm not sure." Well, Ryan now sees that one of the guys over there. So Ryan comes up behind me, and everybody's like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "I'm not sure." And a couple more people come up, and I go, "You know what? I brought cookies." I get the cookies out and I shake them. I said, "If you would like a cookie, please step into the hallway and I will come to your room and bring you a cookie. And the hallway begins to do like this.
Now, to preface this, it was a full moon that night.
So you could see in.
You could see in. And the light is coming in through all the doorways because they have a lot of open doors and there's moonlight. So the hall is illuminated.
And the hall begins to darken. It looks like people are stepping out. And this one comes out and he looks like he's a full figure. And, me just being a dumbass, I go, hello. And I wave at him. And I shit you not, a beat. And he goes and waved back in front of Ryan, in front of one of the guys leading the group, in front of two other investigators and the couple other people who had come to stand behind us.
He was so solid that because he walked down towards us some, he was so solid that he broke the moonlight coming in through the doors that was coming in from outside.
Shit.
He was that, and you could see him bounding like somebody walking towards
I said cookies and he came running.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I would too, but I mean,
but what was weird was that we all looked at each other like, did you see that? Did you see that? And I didn't want to say what I saw, and Ryan didn't say what he saw. And we looked at the guy who was with us and we said, what did you see? He goes, that thing just waved back at you. And I went, yes, it did. Yes, it did. It waved at me. I'm like, hello. And I'm like, we better go make sure that we're like, wait a minute, is that a person? So we kind of take off down the hall. We get to that door and we look in, and there is nobody in that room, and there is no exit out of that room that he went into. He waved, and then he went into the room. There's nobody there. Nobody there.
Nope.
Now, one of the other investigators decided she's going to go farther down the hall. Now, I'm still flabbergasted. I'm like, there was no. I'm like, Ryan, do you see this? There's nobody in this room. I'm like, and I go, and why the hell weren't we filming? Why were we not filming this? And
we were just so enamored.
I know, we were just so crazy in love with it. But she walks down the hall, and as she goes farther and farther down, she begins to, like, here she is. She's coming down the hallway, and all of a sudden things just kind of start coming in behind her. And she gets blacked out, and you can't see her anymore. And we're like, you need to come back because we can't see you anymore. And that whole hallway was illuminated by moonlight.
Yeah.
So there's no reason that she should have been blacked out.
I'm going to show some of these pictures that you sent me of these hallways. Now, these aren't the actual hallway that y'all saw this down, but this will kind of give them an idea about what, y'all are staring down.
So you can see that hallway gets dark very quickly. You can only see to one or two doors. And I believe that's an interior hallway. And so we were in one of the exterior hallways. So all the moonlight would have been coming through those doors. Yes, on that side. So the moonlight would have been coming through that way.
Those
and it
illuminated
illuminated the hallways. And you could see all the way down the hallways because, of course, we went on a full moon. Of course we did. Why wouldn't we?
Of course.
So literally something stepped out.
It did.
Just gave a little wave to us.
And went off on its own. Now,
I took him some cookies.
Oh, she did.
I took him cookies. I'm like, here you go. That's the coolest things I've ever had happen. Hello. And
she definitely got him some cookies.
I took him a cookie.
And here's the thing, too, is if you go to Waverly Hills, that place is so heavily guarded because they are very serious about paranormal investigation. They don't want anybody going up there and messing with anyone or messing with anything. They don't want any contamination. You go, they have security, they have a gate, they have people on golf carts. They are very, very, very adamant about making sure that no one is up there that ain't supposed to be up there. So there's that. So we eliminated that. Secondly, we eliminated the fact that he had nowhere to go. Whatever room he went into.
No exit.
No, it was one entrance and one exit only. He had nowhere he could have gone at all. Now, something else that happened on that floor that I found very interesting is we have a storm that starts to blow up outside. And the guides are kind of telling us what's going on. Now, the doors that go out to the atrium, they're kind of swing open pretty easy. And the wind is blowing in to, and it's a nice, I mean, it's not like howling.
It's not like it's not like, gale winds. So you've got a nice breeze coming in, but it's a little stronger than a breeze, but not by much. I mean, it probably make your hair do this, not much more than that.
And the wind is coming in. And I'm listening to the guide, but like the one of the doors starts moving and it catches my eye. And I look at this door, and this door to one of the rooms that goes out to the atrium closes against the wind.
It swings against the wind. The wind's coming this way, and it goes this way. The wind's coming this direction, and it goes whoop,
Ooh.
And it slams. It slammed. It was loud enough that people were like, "Oh shit!" Because this door just went bam, and I watched it the whole time. Like it went against the wind when it slammed.
I guess we were probably being too loud out there and maybe disturbing one of the patients.
I said, "Damn it, I'm trying to sleep."
It was kind of late, yeah.
And
I
was going to say, Shelly, obviously y'all didn't catch it on film. You weren't filming. We get to that point at some point in these investigations. It's like we are just so enthralled with.
We're as excited as everybody else is.
That literally we forget to press record on our camera sometimes until we're 15 minutes in into a hallway or something. We're like, nobody's recording, really? Oh crap. Okay, cool. But you felt compelled, and with your permission, I'd like to show it. If not, they can see it on our Facebook. But you felt compelled to kind of capture what y'all saw, and you sent me the.
Yeah, don't judge my artistry. Are you going to show the waving guy? The waving guy,
Yes.
okay.
Just to give them an idea.
The other one is better, but this one, yeah.
Just to give an idea,
and I got really compelled to paint what I saw. And what's interesting is you see. On one side, that's what it looked like. He kind of stepped out, and that's what I saw waving. Now you'll see there's something else on the other side of the picture because I thought I saw her too, almost as if she was waving back at him. Again, don't judge my artistry. I'm not an artist. I just felt compelled when I got back from Waverly Hills to paint, and I don't know why I don't get compelled to paint very often, but I did. So you can take that down now. That's enough of that.
Don't be embarrassed. I mean, it's a good visual.
But that is what I saw. It was literally just the hand up, like hi, and then he was gone.
Yeah,
That's
and
so crazy.
Weirdly enough, though, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the 4th floor when we were there that time.
We really didn't.
Happened
After that happened, we're like, holy shit, we got to see the rest of this place.
You know? but I can tell you just from even like listening to like the guides talk and they're showing us the hot spots, you're looking down this hallway, you're seeing things lean out of doors and look at you. Like the shadow people just lean out,
actively checking
duck back in, or like you'll see movement. You'll hear things moving down there. You'll see movement. If you don't believe in ghosts, go to Waverly Hills. I guarantee you'll at least have had something happen to you before you leave.
So it's one of those places that you don't necessarily even really have to go investigate. I mean, you could go pick a spot if you wanted to down one of those hallways and just sit there, and they're going to come to you.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Now, Ryan, was that the floor that we accidentally became impromptu lead investigators on?
I believe it was the 3rd floor. I believe it was the next
floor. We're going there next.
We're going there next, and we also had another compelling experience there that blew our freaking minds. I mean, we were just, like I said, we didn't film anything hardly. We got a little bit of footage to show you here later on. We didn't film anything hardly.
There was so much going on. You didn't know where to turn.
Yeah, every time you turned around, something's peeking out. Something's running across the hallway, like big size, medium size, child size. I mean, just everything is going on, and you're just you can't because you want
to capture it at the same time.
But you don't want to miss it at the same time.
Exactly. You want to be you want to be in the moment to be able to experience and see it, and now the more you go, the better kind of an understanding. Oh, we could do this,
absolutely,
to be able to capture.
And it was our first time in there, and anyone who is in paranormal investigation can tell you that is paranormal Disney World, that place.
Yeah. Because definitely a mecca.
Yeah, everybody wants to go to Waverly Hills. Everybody wants to show up. Everybody wants to see something. People like they sell out like that. Like they'll release public investigation tickets and private investigation tickets, and they'll sell out for the year very quickly because everybody and their mama who's in the paranormal wants to go to Waverly Hills, and it is so worth it. But so we had this experience on the 4th floor, and we kind of want to, like I said, we're looking around, we're trying to see what else is there. And
we're trying to sneak off on our own.
We kind of want to sneak off, and we actually end up sneaking off with the head tour guide and going downstairs on the 3rd floor while people are still on the 4th floor.
Yeah, he was like, I can already tell y'all aren't going to stay with the group. Where do you want to go? And we're like, will you take us?
Yeah. So we go downstairs.
He just gave up and just took us.
And he was really cool. He was really nice.
Yes, he was.
He showed us around and was telling us stories. I mean, this guy, he was awesome.
But even at the same time, I was kind of like, dude, you need to move on. Thank you for bringing us now.
You got to return that favor of all the times that we've been asked. Will you take us?
Yeah, exactly.
You're on the other side.
and we go down to the 3rd floor. Now, 3rd floor, there's some claims of some people have claimed to see doppelgangers on the 3rd floor. There was an investigator who was also a tour guide that claimed he was on the 5th floor one night and there were other people on the 3rd floor, and he came down from the 5th floor about 15 minutes later, and they were mad at him, and he's like, well, why are you mad at me? And they were like, well, you came down and you walked towards us like 2 or 3 feet, and we saw it was you, and you turned around and went and hid in a room from us, and we couldn't find you. And he was like, that wasn't me. Nah, I didn't do that. Now, he was also, I think he was also spotted one time when he wasn't even on the hill. He was like somewhere else, and someone said, oh, I thought I saw you up there. He's like, I'm not even working tonight. I'm somewhere else. So that happens. That's one of the official stories. Timmy is also reported to be on this floor. There's also I did actually see a child-sized shadow figure lean out of a door at one point while we were investigating on this floor.
Yeah, Ryan saw that. I did not.
Yeah.
Ryan's like,
mm-hmm.
And just so you know, Ryan does say holy shit too. He goes, holy shit. So just leaned out that door. So don't be making it out like I'm the only one who goes shit, fuck, shit. Not just me. Ryan goes, shit, did you just see that?
Did you see? Yeah.
And I'm like, no, let's go find it. Let's go.
And that's actually when we ended up being impromptu tour guides at that point.
Because what do we hear from the end of the hallway? Because at this point, the rest of the group that was above us had come down. So now they've joined us.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of spread out. Now we're trying to get away from everybody. We're like, crap, we had the floor to ourselves. Now let's go find somewhere where they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So we see this long, dark corner of the hallway, and we're like, ooh, let's go down there.
Mm-hmm.
And about that time, we hear this bang. And we see dude look like he's an NFL running back come tearing us down the hall like a little bitch.
Yeah.
No, fuck this, man. No, we ain't going back down there.
Yeah.
No, I'm done. And these 2 women, now he's done left his women's. His women's are running behind it. And he was like, he was out. And we're like, whoa, what's the matter? And they're like, no. Down there, we got growled out. We were in the spirit box, and they had one little red SB7s that we like so much. And they're running. He's like, no, something growled at us. That loud bang, something got thrown. They're like, we're not going down there. F that, we're not going back. And of course, so I look around, I'm like, and
where are we
like,
going?
He's like, let's go. And I said, okay, well now, because we go, we're like, oh, we're going down there. And they're like, no, y'all better not. And so Ryan stops, and he's like, no, it's okay. Me, I keep rolling. Ryan's trying to calm him down. I'm like, fuck him. I'm going down here. And I get down the hall, and I kind of start to disappear. And I get down to the hall, and I'm telling them, I'm like, y'all, I don't see anything that's falling. I don't see anything like that. And all of a sudden, bang, literally sounds like a floor had collapsed. It was that loud. The floor, I mean, the walls vibrated. It wasn't like a door slam. It sounded like something had collapsed on something. And I turned around and was going, did it sound like that? And then now they're freaking out. Now they won't leave us. They're like, well, where are y'all going? We're like, wherever you're not.
It's the only bad part about being the one that runs towards things.
Yeah,
I
people
know.
I do love that about our group. I don't think that there's one really in our entire group, not just the 3 of us, but the entire group, that I don't think wouldn't run towards a big old thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Ryan was being so nice, though. Ryan was like, no, it's okay. He goes, let's go see if we can figure out what it is. Now, Shelly's done left all their asses. I'm like,
I'd have been hightailing right behind you, Shelly.
When you had left is when I saw that little kid-looking shadow figure go across, and one of the girls was standing beside me, and she just goes, did you fucking see that? And I said, yes, I did.
And that's what he was saying. Because wasn't it right after I went past the door? It looked like something looked at.
Absolutely.
That's when you said, did you see it? And I'm like, no, I didn't see it. I'm going to find out what the hell's banging around.
But so I'm standing there, and I'm like, that is so cool. And the girl beside me, she's just going, she is freaked out. She is thoroughly freaked out.
Carissa just summed it up for us. She said, we're the first to die in a scary movie.
Absolutely. But so to wind it back a little bit, though, before these people came down the stairs and we're down there with the main tour guide, we're walking through, and we start we all heard what we thought was an audible voice. We couldn't make out what it said, but we all stopped dead in our tracks and we're like, did you hear did you hear that? And he was like, yeah, I heard it. And he's telling us this story about how when he was a kid, he grew up really close to the sanatorium, and it was always something that was a constant in his life, and he knew the people who owned it, and he knew the people who lived there. Now, back in the 70s or the 80s, I can't remember which one it was one of the two, there was a man who was a homeless guy that people knew who he was around town. He was an old Army veteran, and he kind of liked being by himself. He had him a white dog named Sadie. And he went up and was living in the sanatorium. And the people who owned the building at the time come up and they find him and they're like, hey, you can't be here. And he said, look, it was like the fall of the year, I believe. And he said, look, he said, the weather's just about to turn. He said, I'm just going to be here until the spring comes and I'll move on. If you'll just let me stay here, please let me stay here. I'll watch after the building for you. And they were like, well, sure, you can stay here then. I mean, you know, you ain't hurt nothing so far, you know, just make sure, you know, just don't do anything. Just don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So he watches the building. He's in the building for a long time. Well, one night, a bunch of teenagers with a dubious past break in. Supposedly, the story goes that they were devil worshippers. They hacked him and his dog to death and threw them down an elevator shaft and killed them.
Oh my God.
And ever since, people will see him, people will see the dog, and you'll hear dog tags jingling going up and down the hallway. Now, the lady who owns the place, she herself has seen this person. She was going down there one night. She was walking through. She sees a white dog laying in the middle of the hallway. She sees a man, a big, tall, skinny man with a scraggly beard and a trench coat in the hallway, long, stringy hair. She shines her flashlight. She said she had a snake light around her neck. She shines the flashlight towards him. He ain't there. And she still sees the dog laying in the middle of the hallway. So she walks up, gets about 3 foot from this dog. Dog disappears. And she's like, I know what I saw. I know I saw these two. Now, the story is, like I said, people see this guy. You'll hear his voice. And he had like a big, deep, gravelly voice, you know, that they said that he would like tell people to get out of the sanatorium. He would just scare the kids to get the hell out of there. So we hear this story. And we're walking down. And Shelly, what did we hear? We heard a little jangling, didn't we?
We did.
No.
We hear a little jangling.
And so what do we do? We all stop and we're like, shh, shh, shh.
You hear that? Mm-hmm.
Now, is this when we get to the exit sign?
Yes. We come around a corner because the way, if you look at the hallways, they are long, but they're long in segments because the way it's kind of like, it's not quite horseshoe shaped, but kind of like that, where it kind of,
it's more like bat
hallway.
wings.
Yeah,
hallway. Yeah,
it's like a weird,
like a V,
like bat wings.
Yeah. And so we round this corner, and we're hearing this jangling. We round this corner, and underneath the exit sign, we see this green mist. Me, her, and the tour guide. We all saw it at the same time.
We're standing together.
Do you see what I see? And they're like, yes.
And we're watching. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, you go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, and literally this mist, it kind of starts at floor level and it kind of just starts to build up. And it starts to spread up. And the mist is green. You would expect a white mist or a black mist, and it's underneath a red illuminated exit sign. So we really shouldn't have been able to see green.
No.
And in this green, this shadow kind of starts to build out. Now you can tell the detail in he's wearing a jacket, and it almost looks like an army green camouflage jacket. And he's standing there. Now all I could see was one leg, and this thing is building and standing in front of us. How far away were we? Maybe 50 feet, 20 feet?
Yeah, I mean, it was right there. And
it was right there.
Like you were saying, if you stand under an exit sign, all you see is black and red. You shouldn't be able to see that green color, especially that army green. And reportedly, that's what he wore. That was what he wore. He wore like fatigues, and he wore like a green like army coat because he was an ex-veteran. And we just we stood there and we just watched this mist begin to turn into what looks like the outline of a human, into a shadow person. But the whole time around the outside, it's maintaining this green mist around the outside of its outline. And that's what Shelley painted that.
That's what I got compelled to paint.
That is the most accurate description of what we saw. I mean, wow. I have never before or since then seen anything like that. We were just like, we were absolutely dumbstruck. I mean,
let me put it this way. I didn't talk.
No, we were all just
while this was going on. Our eyes were huge. We were staring at it, and it was literally almost the height of the door. And the other doors along the other side of the wall, you could see those other doors to go in. And this was literally at the intersection of the staircase. And he just stood there. And when we finally got our wits about us, I was like, I'm going to go say hi. And they're like, both of them, even the dude who was in here all the time, like, and I'm like, and Willie, I believe is what he called him.
I believe that was his name, if I remember.
And I was like, hi, Willie. I said, can I come down and say hello to you? And I start walking towards, and everything just goes away.
Yep.
Just
Gone.
a couple of steps toward it. I said his name. I said, hi, Willie. Can I come over and say hello to you? And I take 3 or 4 steps, and it was gone. Back to being completely clear in the hall. Just darkness.
Wow.
You know, I think he was just checking us out, making sure we weren't doing something. You know, and we were with the main tour guide who like takes care of the place. I think he was just like curious, like, hey, who's this? Who are these people? You know, and man, I mean, we all kind of stood there in silence for a minute because I mean, we just could not believe
We just
what
watched
we
it
had seen.
form
I mean, I've never seen anything like that. To this,
from
I
the
mean,
floor
yeah,
to a figure. Crazy.
it was nuts. It was insane. And then that's when the people came down the stairs, and we ended up having to be, you know. But actually, hang on a second, because we actually ended up going out onto the little atrium area.
Yes, we did.
And so we ended up talking to the tour guide about some stuff. And when you go onto these atriums, every so often there's a nurse's station that they had like, it's like a little octagon shaped little nurse's station that was built, that jutted out so they could like look down one end and see their
And
patients
see all
look
their
down the
patients
other
this
end.
way and all their patients this way.
And we're standing there talking, and we're looking down that way, and you see something white go into one of those nurses' stations, and then it goes back out.
Like she just stepped out to check on her patients.
And we were the only ones on the floor until those other people came down. That's when the people came down, and like we had the bangs and everything else. And he kind of, and the main tour guide, he kind of stepped over to the side for a little bit, you know, and went to go check on the people on the 4th floor. And that's when we ended up, you know, walking around with these people. But then we go down to Shelley's favorite floor. I say that facetiously.
Oh, but hold on. I actually did a little research on Waverly Hills as well, and even though I haven't been there, on the 3rd floor, I found probably to date one of the most compelling actual photos ever captured.
Ooh.
Now, usually I'm not one to try and showcase somebody else's evidence, but I think that this is an amazing capture. So all credit to this gentleman, Tom Halstead. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, with Missouri Paranormal Research. This is his evidence. This is not our evidence. I want that to be known. He got a full body apparition in 2006, and I'll just
on the 3rd floor.
I'll just throw the photo out.
Ooh, let's see.
Oh, wow.
Holy crap! She's on the right side in the doorway.
Whoa.
So now I will go ahead and say, because there's a lot of controversy around this photo, a lot of people thinking, oh, it's fake, or it's all that stuff. I started digging into the research of it, going, is it fake? Is it, is this just a really good hoax? No, I came across an article where he came forward and he presents the negative and holds it up to the light, and you can see her in the negative.
Wow.
And he is not using any other type. He is using like a straight up, like, I forget the actual name of the camera, but it is not like a digital camera. It's not, I mean, like,
It's like a 35 millimeter camera.
Yes, exactly.
With your Fuji-film in there and everything else.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. But as you can see, she is right there on the right-hand side of the doorway, like Shelley said. Now, this has said a couple of things of who she is. Now, there was a comparison to a patient that resided in there, that they've done some research on that patient and pulled up a former picture of her, and she looks very similar to this lady that is caught in the photo. So they believe that this to be Mary Lee, which was a patient. Which ironically I found, isn't that the same name of the nurse that supposedly hung herself upstairs? And
yeah, it was Mary. Hillenberg that hung herself upstairs.
But then again, Mary's a very common name. So there was rumor at one point that it was that nurse as well, but I don't think it is. Why'd she be on the 3rd floor? Hanging out in the patient. She looks like a patient to me. She looks like she's got a gown on.
Yeah, to me too. Yeah, she looks like she does have a gown on. Her like a nurse would have had like a little hat and would have been done up and would have been
So she definitely looks like a patient. So
if you look at the bottom, you can kind of see slippers too, almost at the bottom of her at the bottom of her dress or her down looking thing. If you look, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can kind of make out what you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, all credit on that to Tom Halstead or Halstead. This was his capture in 2006 when he went.
That is really cool.
I just thought it was an amazing photo, and I definitely had to show y'all.
that
I had a story.
that is a hell of a catch.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is. That's like what we all try and catch.
That's what we strive to pick up when we're investigating.
Exactly. So anyway, sorry to please continue with our tour.
Absolutely. So we go down to the second floor. Now we're in the little tour group again, and Shelly is looking down this hallway.
I'm not paying attention. I'm trying to get away from the group. What else is new?
And at this point,
not you.
The guys are starting to take notice. I mean, they took notice on the fourth floor because they kind of they wanted to make sure and see what Shelly was doing, but they're taking notice because all these experiences are happening. Now they're talking about this particular room. Now, if you've ever seen the episode of Ghost Hunters where they went to Waverly Hills the first time, and they had and Jay and Grant, they have the thermal imaging camera, and you see something run across the hallway on the thermal imaging camera. So one of the guys, so Jay was back up there, and one of the guys is like, "Hey, can you show me where it was that you caught this?" And he shows them this particular room. So they're telling us that story. Shelly's not even listening to this story. She's just looking down this hallway. And
I start down the hallway.
And the guide is like, "So we're going to take you to that room next." And so one of the other guys is like, "What room are we going to?" And Shelly goes, "The fourth one on the right." Guess what room we went to?
The fourth one on the right.
Because the guy that was following me, because I'm like, I wouldn't even listen. He was telling this at the front of the hall, and like we were lined up down the hall because all I wanted to do is them turn me loose. And I just kind of start wandering down the hall. And this one guy, he's like, "Oh my God, here goes the blonde again. Jesus Christ, somebody go follow her." And I get down there and I stop and I go, "What's going on in this room?" I go, "What's going on in here?" And that's where he says, "We're going to go down to the room." And he waves his hand. He says, "Hey," to the guy who was telling the story. And he goes, "She just called the room." And I was like, "Well, I don't know if this is the one I want to go to." So move, I'm going in.
Because of Shelly's freaking sniffer.
Yeah. And
Shelly's like that one. We just show up to an investigation. Let's just open the door and just let her go, and everybody just follow. Because wherever she goes, we might catch something. Because there's a story that happened there. I guarantee.
Yeah, you're gonna find something then. But we go down into this room. Now, they said that this room, they take a lot of people to this room, and people who have had like really like intense experiences in Waverly Hills because it has a very calming presence. And this room is another patient room. And it is the patient room of a woman named Lois Higgs, who died at the sanatorium in 1954. She was only 28 years old. And her story is both her and her sister were admitted to Waverly Hills. They both caught tuberculosis. They're in Waverly Hills. They get better. They're cured. Clean bill of health. And they leave and they go back down the hill. Her sister never goes back to Waverly Hills other than to visit because Lois contracts TB again while she's out and about in town. But she doesn't know it until she goes in and is about to give birth to her son. And the doctors do an x-ray on her. And they do all this different stuff, and they do all these different tests, and they say, "Mrs. Higgs, I'm sorry, but you have recontracted tuberculosis. We're going to recommend that you be sent back to Waverly Hills." And she has her child, her little boy, who she never got to hold. He's taken from her, and she's sent back up to the hill. So I'm telling Shelly this story on the way to Waverly Hills. And we didn't know what room it was, though. We knew it was on the second floor, but we didn't know what room. And Shelly's like instantly gets goose pimples. Like the hair on her arm stick up, and she instantly gets goosebumps. So we go down into this room, and they tell us that story. They tell us, what happened to her and everything. She ends up dying at the age of 28. There's a picture of her in the room. They have printed out and a little bit of her story. And so we decide we're going to do Estes method down there. And Shelly is having the same reaction that she's having right now.
I'm trying to be cool.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone.
Another part of the story that I forgot and I just remembered is, since she never got to hold her son, what they would do is her family would drive up there on Sundays and they would pull up in front of the sanatorium. Lois would go and sit on the edge of the balcony right there on the atrium, and they had copper screens in them. And they would hold her son up to her so she could see her son. And they would visit through the screen. And now remember, she's on the second floor, so the family's down there, and she can't get close to him. So she never got to hold her son, but she got to see him, and they would come and show him, and say, hey, there's your mama. So we're in the room, and we decide to do Estes method. And I go under. And Shelly, what question did you ask?
Well, he got a female right off.
Yes.
And
so,
I
very
just,
soft voice.
Very, yeah, he said very soft, very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And I started saying, who are we talking to? And I didn't get a name. And then I finally, after 3 or 4 tries, I said, is this Lois? And Brian he goes, that was a female. It was really quiet. She said, yes. And then you said, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got overwhelmed. I started feeling tears. I started feeling immense sadness. And I asked her I asked her because I feel like I was talking to her. I said, Lois, tell me what I can leave you. And Ryan immediately says, my heart. And I lost my shit. It was done.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think of was her heart was out there, her baby that she never got to hold. She could just wave at through a screen. I had to go close Ryan down the Estes method because I couldn't do any more because I was being affected by her emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But Ryan, just in this really soft voice, I'm just like, Lois, what can I leave you to make it this easier for you? And Ryan just very softly goes, my heart. And he said it just like that. And I had to shut it down.
And I can tell you, anytime Lois Higgs is mentioned, Shelly has this reaction.
I don't know what it is.
I mean, when we returned again with Stacy and Gypsy, the second time we went, we were lucky enough to go a second time this year, and Shelly had that reaction. And if I'm not mistaken, you were sitting in the area where she would have sit on the balcony that time, and you felt something tug the back of your shirt.
Yeah, just kind of like, hey.
And there's nothing she could have leaned against because there's no screens there anymore. She wasn't next to a pillar. And she was like, she felt something tap her on her back or tug on her back. So Shelly, we shut down the Estes method, and we're in Lois's room. Now, I wish I had this piece of evidence. I don't have it because they recorded it when we were in there, and we did a EVP session. But what you do is you have 10 people or more, or 10 or less, or however many you want to do it in a room. You have people go around and ask the same question. Pause for a few seconds, and then have another person ask the same question over and over again until you get all the way around the room. So we're in there, and first person goes, Lois, are you here? Point the next person. Lois, are you here? Pause. And so it goes around and around and around. So then we cut off the recording. We listened back to the recording. Shelly asked, Lois, are you here? And shortly after Shelly asks, you hear another woman's voice. Shelly was the only woman in the room. You hear another, very soft female voice say, I'm here in the doorway.
She goes, I'm here.
As clear
in the doorway
as a bell. You could not have gotten it any more clear.
And what was odd was that nobody else could figure out what she was saying. And I said, let me have the recorder. And I put it right up to me, and I'm like, listen to it. It says, I'm here in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and they're like, oh my God, that is what she's saying. And of course I lost my shit again. I started being a girl. I was like, yeah.
But I mean, we continued with that session, and Shelly had to walk off. She had to walk down the hall. She finally came back, and we were able to move on. But every time Shelly has read anything or seen anything about Lois Higgs, and now keep in mind, she knew nothing about this person before we went. Anytime she's brought up, Shelly has this reaction. And I almost wonder if you're not having that reaction because you are a mother and you have that connection to her where you know how she feels.
And just that I just can't imagine
Mm-hmm.
giving birth to your wonderful little baby and you can't hold him and nobody's going to let you because you could kill him if you do.
Mm-hmm.
And all you can do is wave at him. You never get to put him in your arms or anything. I don't know. That pain seems like any mother could identify with that. Just what would you do if suddenly, if you touch your child, you could potentially kill him?
Yeah.
I mean, that's awful. It's just awful. When we, like Ryan said, when we went back the second time, I was trying to be cool going in the hallway and I hadn't said anything. And I'm like, okay, I knew we were coming up to the room because Ryan had warned me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm good. And I literally walked into the room, had to walk right back out of it, kind of went and stood by the side where her bed would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to shake and I was shaking and here came the tears and I'm trying to hold it together because, okay, everybody, they're over here and here me, I'm this idiot, just like, boohooing and bawling and crying. And that was worse than the first time because this time I literally couldn't compose myself to the point where someone walked over to me and go, do you need us to take you outside? And I went, no. I said, I need you to leave me alone. And I said, just let me walk away. I said, I've been here before. I can find my way back. And I walked out and I walked all the way down to the other end of the hall by myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever you're doing, stop. I know you're here. I get it. I feel you. I know you're here. I've heard you. I understand. And you've got to stop doing this to me. And I took a breath and I started walking back, but I wouldn't walk back in that room. I couldn't do it. It seemed like the second I walked in that room, I was done for. So I didn't walk back in. I stood outside in the hallway until they were done in that area.
And Shelley don't really get emotional like this either.
No, I'm not saying
anybody
baby.
who knows her, she's not. No. She's
she doesn't.
She gets emotional, but she doesn't get emotional like this. I mean, we all get emotional, like, oh,
But I
shit.
think that this also kind of shows, that there is a whole completely different side to investigating that people don't really, yes, you see it from the audience lens where it is, oh, it's cool, they're capturing things, and they're seeing all this stuff and experiencing all these awesome locations, which, yeah, okay, we are. But there are moments like this where you're just hit with this emotional dump truck that they want you to feel. Or there's an instant connection with them that just seems to tie you, to the spirit for whatever reason. It's not a nefarious reason. It's just there's that connection, that bond instantaneously, and this is a side of investigating that I find very, very interesting. I have not had it to the level that Shelley has had it. I've had a couple of experiences along that lines down in Yorktown with the female that keeps asking me to help her. But this is a side that I'm actually glad that y'all are telling a story. I guess that's where I was going with it, because this is a side that a lot of people don't really get to see, that we do experience from time to time.
There's a very emotional and human, a human element to this. From the outside looking in, it's all gadgets and, what are we catching, but yeah, sometimes there is, something takes a liking to you or something tries to connect with you and you're like, hey, I know this person will feel what I'm feeling or hear me or see me. And they do that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Shelley,
for whatever reason.
Lois is yours.
Yeah, I know. See, you just say her name. It starts but just for whatever reason. And we do. We joke and we laugh a lot. And we do walk around in dark places talking out loud to things we can't see. And it is a little funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, we do get scared. And yes, we do jump. But it's very rare to walk into a location and have something just take an emotional toll on you, where it's like you're not expecting this, and and it shocks you because you're thinking, wait a minute, they're not supposed to be able to get to me like this. They're, okay, if I get scratched, whatever, that's a cool picture, but you kind of don't have any proof whenever something just takes over your emotions and you don't know how to explain it because you can't prove that in the moment, that you're just overwhelmed. And it's this thing where you feel sick at your stomach and you can't control your emotions, and you're thinking, and I think the best way I can describe it is it's just for Lois. God, I love Lois. I'm just going to say, I love you, Lois. That it's just such this incredible sadness that we're going to have to move on. It's a sadness that I can't handle. So, I love her, and I will go back to her room. it'll kick my ass. But we have to go to her room last because I think I was so gets down
Strung
after
out
being
on
in
one.
there.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Because they strung out what
Emotional
happened. Yeah,
overload
yeah,
after
Yeah.
being in there that
Yep.
you're almost too tired to do anything else. So let's move on from Lois, please.
Yep.
I love Lois, but let's move on.
So continuing the tour, Ryan, hurry.
All right, so we're now. If you look to your left, we're gonna we'll go downstairs to the last floor, first floor, connected to the body chute. Now on that first floor, the morgue is down there, and we went down there and checked it out. And there's only 3. Believe it or not, for a place of that size and that much depth, there was only 3 like slab body tables that would go into the wall. That's all they had was 3. And you can get on them and you can go lay in there if you want to. I kind of thought about it, but we had more we have more pressing matters to get to when we were there. Hell, I'll do it. I don't mind. Shit.
No, I thought I climbed into it the first time. Didn't I climb into it the first time?
Oh yeah, you did climb into it the first time.
I'm pretty sure I climbed into one of those things. I didn't stay long because it was kind of rusty and kind of really looked like it was going to collapse on me.
I mean, they're completely.
I mean, are they like full slabs? Like
they're full
the
slabs. They
in
slide
and
out and slide in.
Oh yeah, see, no. I mean,
But
if
they
it's just like an
don't-
autopsy table, maybe I'd lay on that.
They
Oh,
have
there's one of
those
those too.
No. I'll lay on that. Y'all can have the.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
they say they don't want you to lay on the autopsy table.
Okay.
They don't want you to lay on that. You can
Then
lay
y'all
on the
can have-
on the bottom
Yeah.
thing of the morgue. And I climbed in there just to see what it was like. And I'm like, yeah, this looks like this crap's going to fall down on me.
Exactly.
So
But I mean, people go in there and they get uncomfortable feelings. I mean, probably because of claustrophobia and stuff like that. I mean, but I don't know of any like real claims that come out of that, other than like, hey, this is something kind of cool and creepy to do, you know, when you go in there.
so of course we did it.
Of
we did.
course.
But on that floor too.
I'll film you next time.
Oh, hey, I'll do it. Why not?
I'll be standing there by myself and you can run a camera. I don't care.
But on that floor, there is a room that they use for like that. They will have paracons there sometimes, where they invite other like investigators. They have like little mini paracons and stuff there, and it's like a banquet room kind of. But they use that when they have those. And there was a casket that they had in there. I don't know where they got the casket from, but I mean that place. I don't like that room.
We know our looking caskets. I mean,
So
shit.
there's
Yeah.
actually 3 caskets in that room, and the one that's in the center, right? The
Mhm.
center one, the steely silver colored one.
Mhm.
Tell them the story about that, Ryan. Tell them what we had been told about this, about that room.
If you knock on that casket, supposedly something will knock back. Shelley did it, of course. Now,
I went, hello.
Yeah, I mean, look,
hello,
just
anybody home? Hello.
moving forward, whenever you just say supposedly if you do this, I'm just gonna assume it's implied that Shelley had already done it.
I did,
And-
but something very strange happened in that room. Now, Blake, you know how calm Ryan is. Ryan is not somebody who gets jumpy. He's not somebody who gets wigs out. If something cool happens, he's going to acknowledge it. But he's not real jumpy. Ryan got wigged the F out in that room. Ryan was like, of course, I probably didn't help one. Hello, you know? And Ryan's like, yeah, I don't think you ought to do that. And I'm like, come on, knock back, you in there? And Ryan's like, you know, and I said, okay, well, let's just sit, because of course, three or four chairs in that room that you can sit with the 3 caskets. So I said, well, let's just sit down here for a second. Let's look at some of our evidence. Let's see if we caught anything good. And I'm, you know me, I'm looking through my pictures as fast as I can, just see. And I look over and I notice Ryan's doing this. And I'm like, what's the matter, Ryan? He's like, you know, I just really don't want to be. He goes, can we leave? Can we get the hell out of here?
yeah.
What was going on, Ryan?
I don't know. I just got the
Hate
most
that feeling.
uncomfortable, like something is about to happen if we don't fucking leave feeling. I don't understand what it was. Now I know that room is pretty close to where the shock therapy room was. So maybe that had something to do with it. I know that they had told a story about an old man being seen down there, because when it was a geriatric hospital, an old, you know.
And that is one of the few areas that there's allegedly an aggressive entity that
Yeah,
could do something
on
to
the first
you.
floor. Yeah, and they're not quite sure what it is down there on the first floor, but they just said it's not nice and you don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, that was the
Um,
one thing they cautioned against. Whatever
mhm.
it is, if you start feeling comfortable, go ahead and get out, because
Yeah.
whatever is down there, he is the one that truly will scratch, hurt, push, and for whatever reason,
Yeah.
he just wants you out of his area.
And they don't, they, as far as I know, even the last time we went, they don't know exactly what it is. Now that whole first floor area, they do a haunted house in the,
You know how much we love that.
in the October, but like that's where they got they get most of their donations and most of their money from doing that haunted house in order so they can restore the building and keep the building up and running. And it's kind of a maze, so it's very easy to get lost in that area. And that'll come into play in a little bit whenever we try to get out of it.
Well, hold on. We
Go
actually have one of the guides, I believe, commenting.
Yeah.
Vince Guy Keelian says, "Hey guys, one of your guides here going to come back and see us for an overnight soon."
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You just have
Vince, you
anytime
tell
you
us
want
when.
us. You tell us when, and we'll be there.
Tell us when,
I'm
Vince, and
telling
we
you.
will be there.
Packing my bags right now.
I believe Vince is the one who rescued us when whatever
believe
happened.
I believe you're right.
Y'all tell me that story.
So we go down. So we go down, and we end up going into the death tunnel. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Let me back up. That room that we were in, if I'm not mistaken, and Vince, you can correct me on this. That's where they used to pile bodies up.
No, you're right on that. That's where they would stack them when the morgue was full.
Yeah, when the morgue was full, that's where they would stack the bodies. And they said that room was just filling up because they just had so many people dying like hour on the hour. But now that body, so the body chute where we're going to go next, that body chute was not originally used to haul bodies out of Waverly Hills. It is in Louisville, so it is kind of close to like a mountainous area. It's in the Ohio River Valley. So in the wintertime, it gets cold. And it's on a hill, so it's hard to get your ass up that hill to get anything into Waverly Hills. So what it was like a supply tunnel originally. And they had like a pulley system where at the bottom of the supply tunnel, they would load things on and have the pulley system take things up. But eventually, in order to keep the morale up and to keep the people happy, they ended up having to use it as a tunnel to get things out of Waverly Hills.
Which is why it became known as the Death Tunnel.
They would have hearses waiting at the bottom.
And as we were told, it was when we got there, the first thing I say is, "Can we go to the bottom?" And the person who's with us looked at us and said, "It's 154 steps to the bottom." He said, "It's also 154 steps back up."
Back up, yeah, exactly.
And I looked at Ryan, I go, "Let's go."
And boy, do we ever. Now,
okay, so we actually walked to the bottom of that tunnel twice.
We did.
In the same night. The first night, remember, a whole group came down behind us.
Oh, yes.
And they were just like, well, actually, no, I take it back. Did we just go down once and the group went up ahead of us?
Okay, so that night, we ended up going down when we went with Stacy and Gypsy as well. But the first night we went down was when that group came down behind us.
Okay, so again, we became impromptu lead investigators because they were like, "Where y'all going?" I'm like, "I'm going to the bottom of that tunnel." They're like, "Oh, we'll go with you." And I'm thinking, well, shit. So here, and I have a picture of this. It wasn't just one or two people. It was like 9 or 10.
It was some of the same people from the fourth floor or the third floor that got spooked when we were up there.
Yeah. And so we take our butts all the way down to the bottom.
But now, so some of the claims that people get in that death tunnel is people see shadow people. The entrance gate will slam sometimes. It does have a very distinct sound. They have feelings of being followed, shuffling footsteps, and voices and phantom coughs. Now, there was something in that tunnel at the very end when we got down there. And let me tell you, it does not do it justice on television when you see this thing. This thing is long. And my fat ass trying to get all the way down. Going down ain't the problem. Coming back up is the problem. And on one side is a ramp. On the other side are a bunch of stairs. And like every 2 or 3 stairs, you can see there's like a landing.
You can see how they're very disproportionate all the way down. Yeah. And the ramp side is for the gurneys.
The bodies that go down.
Yeah. And the other side is whenever you're coming back up. That's 2 different views of it. Yes, one going down and one going up.
One going down,
absolutely,
one going up. Yeah.
And we get down there, and Shelly, what do we have going on down there? Because okay, so I will say that too. We did have the spirit box running, and that is a Faraday cage in there. If I remember correctly, you can't get any because I don't
There's
think
no
I was
radio
getting
blades.
any phone signal or anything down there at the bottom of that thing.
No, you couldn't.
And you were we were getting a male voice. And what did he say? Do you remember exactly what he said?
I don't remember exactly. It seems like when he was coming through, he was very clear when he was coming through. But he wasn't like his conversation was very broken with us, and I don't remember a lot of what he said. Do you remember much of that?
I don't.
It seemed like it was all just random answers. But
Yeah.
it was answers to questions, but it seemed more random.
But you could
Didn't really-
feel something down there.
Yeah.
So we weren't alone down there. And the people that had come down there with us,
At this point, it's getting late.
it's getting late. They had left. And so me and Shelly, we're the two goobers that are left in the death
We're the
tunnel,
last two
so.
at the bottom of the death tunnel. And
Heck
I'm
yeah.
like, hell
And-
yeah.
And so, we're asking questions and everything. Now
We got
Shelly,
the obulus and the
we have an obulus. We're asking questions. And
K2s.
we were getting K2 hits. We were getting, things coming out on the spirit box. It escapes me for right now. I don't know why. I can't remember. But we're only two down there, and we're not alone. And these people have already left. So me and Shelley are like, okay, we probably should get out of here, and we're going to go up to the top.
We were running short on time anyway.
Mm-hmm. Now Shelley is she's like, you go up first, and I'm going to go up behind you, and I'm going to film behind while we leave.
So Ryan's cameras, he's walking up, is facing this way. Mine is facing the opposite direction, filming behind me as I'm walking up.
Mhm. Now,
Gotcha. Okay. And then
So I'm just walking. I'm
Mhm.
walking like this.
walking up behind it, and I can tell you that night there was no fog. It's not foggy.
We were in an enclosed tunnel.
We were in an enclosed tunnel. I mean, there is a gate at the bottom, but you can. I mean, it's not foggy. There's no smoky. There's like our you can't see our breath. It's not wispy or anything like that. And Shelly is filming behind us as we're walking up this tunnel, and you get like this wispy smoke looking stuff come from the left side of Shelly's camera. And Shelly, do y'all have that footage?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
Okay.
I do. I'll go ahead and play it.
So it goes from a wisp of like fog down into an orb, and it shoots off. So that was probably a little quick. It just kind of does this, and then it goes into that orb and blinks, and it's gone.
You see the orb at the very end of that video. I can play it again real quick.
And I actually cut it kind of short. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll play it again real quick.
So it just kind of
And
into the
what's
orb, and it's gone.
and what's weird to me, if you're looking at it, because I've now you sent this to me or us, and I've been rewatching because I just like to see the trajectory, especially of the orb, and I finally caught it. It forms, comes this way, goes well. My camera's reversed. Sorry, y'all. I'm in a mirror camera,
Same.
so it's really hard. But anyways,
Same.
it comes forward and it goes this way, and then it cuts up. Actually, catch going. So it's like it goes up,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like big old mist into a little bitty orb, and just it's really weird.
Yeah, I
Really
mean,
good, really
it
good
was
capture, in my
strange.
opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and a couple of times she got like, I believe you got that smoke multiple times on the way
I
up,
think it
right?
was twice on the way up, because we were walking up, and there was another one that just kind of like, but this one, it kind of looked like it came from behind me and then it went up. But that one, it's little bit faster, a little hard. That one was actually the easier of the two to see, but it shouldn't have. If I'm standing here, it shouldn't have come this way and gone up. If I'm walking this direction, it shouldn't have come from behind me and gone up. So that one was interesting.
And I will tell you this, that there was another guy. So when we had to be let out, which we'll get to that in a second, we ended up like talking to a guy in the little like main area, and he had been filming in the death tunnel, and I don't know, his camera was fine, but it almost looked like he was filming underwater. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like all like, it was so weird because all like, I mean, orbs and stuff everywhere, like smoky, foggy looking stuff, and it looked like he was almost underwater. That's the best way I can describe it. And he had been part of that group that was behind us, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
That followed us down to the bottom.
Yes.
So, my camera didn't malfunction. Shelly's camera didn't malfunction. Maybe his did. I can't. I don't know what was up with his
Although
camera.
I do have a
but-
couple of pictures in the death tunnel. It looks like it has a red tint to it, which I thought was interesting, but I can't prove that's either paranormal or my camera malfunction. That it's like in one or two pictures. That could have been a difference in the way I was holding my hand or something like that. So I didn't put those up there because they're not conclusive in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And they weren't something that I could debunk or prove. So,
But yeah, so we end up walking to the top of this death tunnel, and lo and behold, like anywhere else, me and Shelly are the last two out.
Well, now wait. Now we have what happens when we get to the top of the death tunnel.
Yeah. But
You
you're
want to
right.
play that clip, Blake?
Yeah, I can. Let me get to this.
You can't
So-
see to the bottom. It's how dark it is down there.
Thank you to anyone that communicated with us. We appreciate it. And if I left it by the obvious at the bottom of the stairs, that's where it's going to live.
And this is as far as you can follow us.
Thank you for any communication you gave us. If you came up the stairs so we could see you in the form of energy, thank you. Oh, you came to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. This is as far as you can go. But thank you very much for communicating.
Okay, so who heard that? You heard it. I heard it too. Did you hear it this time, Ryan?
You got to play it again. I have
Okay,
to- I have
so
to
listen
again closer.
right after I say thank you to whoever it is that came to talk with us. And Ryan says, "This is as far as you can go. You can't follow us." After that, you'll hear it, and it's a quick one word.
Okay.
You can't even see to the bottom. It's how dark it is down there.
Thank you to anyone that communicated with us. We appreciate it. And if I left it by the obvious at the bottom of the stairs, that's where it's going to live.
And this is as far as you can follow us.
Thank you for any communication you gave us. If you came up the stairs so we could see you in the form of energy, thank you. Oh, you came to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. This is as far as you can go. But thank you very much for communicating.
Is that a okay?
It's an okay. After you say this is as far as you can follow us, you hear okay.
But it's a deep one. Like it's a deep voice to me. Like that's what I hear. I hear it because you say this as far as you can follow us, and I hear him go, okay.
It's kind of like,
Like
okay.
almost like Eeyore.
Like he's disappointed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
fine.
Eeyore from- He's like,
okay.
We were hanging out.
Yeah.
Now we got to go. Okay.
yeah,
So I
I
guess-
see. You leave me just like everybody else. You suck. Okay.
I'll work on rehancing it and send it back over to you.
It's
Ryan,
funny
to
because
make-
Yeah.
I have
Hear it a
watched
little bit
that
better.
video several times. It's part of it. Okay, just if you want to know how long it takes us to truck up from the bottom
my
of the
God.
death tunnel, 6 minutes and 21 seconds. Okay, and
we had to take some
and
breaks.
but we only paused. We just stopped for a second. That was only like, hey, did you hear that? We'd stop for a second, then we'd go on again.
Mhm.
It took us almost 6 minutes to walk from the bottom to the top. We were not rushing. We were taking our time so that we didn't, bump our cameras around too much. We're trying to keep our camera views steady and things like
Mhm.
that. And that's why when I got to the top, I'm like, I didn't know if I had the ovulus. And I'm like, well, if I left that ovulus down there, guess what? That's where that ovulus lives from here on out.
I
I'm
say,
like,
what-
I don't want it that bad.
That's my favorite line out of that whole the whole little clip. If that's where the ovulus is at, it's just going to live there.
That's right, because I
That's
ain't
how-
going back down to get it.
I'm gonna tell you what. By the time I got to the top of that thing, I told Shelly, I said, "God, I'm fat."
And
I said, "I'm
again, we
sucking
also-
wind."
Now, see, this is what you're missing whenever, because see, that's just the edited. We're talking and cutting up the whole way up the stairs. Because at one point I go, damn, if I ever thought we were out of shape, you know what? Damn, I was right. We are out of shape. I'm like, oh my God, this is a bunch of stairs. So we're cutting up. And there's actually at one point in that longer video that Ryan actually stops and he says, did you hear that? And I'm like, no, what'd you hear? He goes, it was a deep male voice.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've listened back and I could not find it. I've done it with earphones. I could not find right before when Ryan says, did you hear that? I've gone back almost a minute and a half, could not find what he heard. But in doing that, that's where I found at the very end where Ryan says, this is as far as you can follow us. And I heard it clear as a bell. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, this is as far as you can follow us. There was nothing that he would echo. Us is the last word, definitive, consonant syllable, a sound at the end. Us, not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a vowel sound at the end of a sentence.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been an echo.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very interesting because we were the only people
At that
were
point.
still on. We were the only people on that floor.
Mm-hmm.
So, being that we
And-
had not gone and checked out,
Mm-hmm.
two very kind people came to find us.
Mm-hmm. Well,
They
we
find us.
were walking around. We were walking around, and we were like, okay, well, how? Because we were like, meet us on the second floor. There's like a little like day room that they had where the patients would go and like hang out on Christmas time and stuff like that. They were like, meet us on the second floor at this time.
And
Make
everybody
sure
goes
you're
out
back.
together. Mhm.
And so we're trying to get there. And like I said, that first floor, they do their haunted houses. So it's like a maze. I was like, I don't know where the hell I'm going. and some very
So
kind
we
people.
have 3 minutes to get where we're going, and we're like, well, shit, we can't find our damn way out of here.
And so they came to find us, and we end up going and beating on the door for, because the two that came to find us, they got barred in too with us, if I remember correctly.
So what happened? Yes. So what happens is they come and find us. We said, oh my God, because you're in Waverly Hills. It's time to be going. You see 2 figures walking towards you in the dark. First of all, I shit myself a little bit. And I'm thinking, who the hell is walking up? And I'm like, I even have to step back. I'm going, Ron, do you see that? And they go, hello. And I went, oh God, thank you. It's really humans.
Thank you.
And we're like, okay. We're like, hey, we were on our way out there. Like, yeah, it's time to go. And we're like, oh, sorry. We were down the death tunnel. They're like, yeah, we figured. And so we start walking out. Now we get up to the door that breaks the area that leads to the death tunnel. And the 2 guides go to push the door open. They can't get it open. And we're thinking, oh, okay, well, they just got to push it a little harder. Boom, push it. No, the door is locked because you see the 2 guys that came to find us, the people who were running the investigation thought that they had left. So they had come down and barred the door to this entrance in Waverly Hills.
Literally barred the door.
Literally had a lift bar on the door. And I'm looking at Ryan and I go, y'all stay a couple more hours in Waverly Hills? And the 2 guys are like, oh no, we're getting out of here. They start beating on the door and they are beating on it and they are screaming. And it takes 2 or 3 minutes. And finally somebody comes down and go, and you hear the as the bar's lifted up off the door and they push the door open and the guy opens the door and says, I am so glad y'all are human because we thought it was a spirit acting up down here. We're like, oh no. And I was like, shit, they let us out. Ryan's like, no, I think we're ready to go. I think we can go now. And of course, we were the last 2 with we had it. We were allowed to be there till a certain time. And by God, at 3 minutes till, that's when I'm walking to the door, not at 20 till, at 3 minutes till.
Yeah.
And let me just say, with the history and everything, I mean, the staff could not be more courteous. I mean,
they were wonderful to us.
Fantastic. They are great. Great time, very knowledgeable, told us about everything, and
they were willing to put up with me wandering off, and nobody got angry with me because I just kept wandering off, and they got to where they're like, hey, what are you doing? What are you seeing? Did you see something?
Hell, they were as interested in us as we were in them, and they were like very accommodating, very nice.
They learned a few things from us. We learned a few things from them. We're like, hey, well, we told them, we said we do this in Texas, and we take people around just like y'all are doing now. And we were like, if y'all get to Texas, come go to Yorktown with us. And they're like, really? I'm like, as long as you can come back to Waverly Hills.
Offer
and they're
still
like,
stands if y'all
absolutely.
come back.
Yeah.
Vince, the offer still stands.
Heck
Y'all
yeah.
get yourself to Texas. Let us know enough time, and we'll take you to Yorktown with us.
Absolutely.
So that was, I'm telling you, it was. But leave it to our
I can
dumbasses
tell
to be
you,
the ones that may get locked in Waverly Hills.
And I can tell you, that is my all-time favorite place to investigate. Shoot. I'd live in damn Louisville if I could, just to be there. But I mean, that place is so cool. I can't even begin to describe to you how great of a place that is, and how interesting it is. And and that's the thing too, is we go into so many places where
it has to do something spectacular to make an impression on us.
It does. And also, we go into a lot of places, too, where there might be something nasty kind of lingering around. But at Waverly Hills, other than getting creeped out in that one room, they're people. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to communicate. They want to show you themselves. And they want to... They just want to communicate with you. And
if you think about it, their life there would have been very lonely. People couldn't come and visit them. Right. It would have been the same people over and over, and your friends are dying off day after day after day. And it had to have been lonely.
And that is their home. And if you die, where are you going to go? You're going to go home. And that was their family. A lot of the nurse and staff and stuff were their family because they had nobody to come see them. And that's something else I can say about them too. Is they are the people who run it and the people who do the tours and everything, it's a very welcoming atmosphere. They are very respectful of everything that is there. They don't try to go in and try to piss something off. And that
Yeah,
is
they don't go
something-
in like, come at me, bro. And they actually very much
Yeah.
discourage people from
Exactly.
doing this because
Because these are
like Ryan
people.
said, this was a very fragile place as far as the people went. They were very fragile. And they don't want you to do that. They want you to be
Yeah.
respectful. I never had the urge to go yelling at anything. Everything seemed nice, waving at me, that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff. It was very, and don't get me wrong, creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, I
But-
loved it.
Oh, I can imagine.
But I never felt like I was going to be injured, harmed, hurt like you would at a Yorktown. You never really, and now again, Ryan's right, in that bottom room with the caskets where the bodies were
A little
stacked up.
creepy.
It's creepy, and again, they had warned us there was something that was down there, but don't mess with him. Just leave him alone, and
Right.
he won't bother you. And we heeded that warning out of respect for them. That okay, even if he acts up, we're going to say, hey, knock it off. We'll go into another room. But we didn't have a problem. But we had so much interaction, and it was so fun. And
So
when are
much
we
fun.
going?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but y'all need. I am waiting for literally the phone to ring and one of y'all to be like, "We going this time. Pack your bags.
Yeah.
Let's get." So I'm ready.
I
when
want to
y'all
go.
are, literally.
I want to go yesterday. I mean, like I
That's
am.
me.
That I mean, like I said, that out of anywhere I've ever investigated, and if you at the beginning of the episode, I mean, even in Texas investigating Yorktown, and at the beginning of the episode, I named some pretty heavy hitters as far as the paranormal world goes. That is still by far my most favorite place I have ever been, and I cannot gush enough about it, and cannot wait to get back.
And
So-
I
There
just
were
can't wait to
experiences
get in.
there that I had never had before and have not had since.
Mhm.
I've never had an apparition form in front of my face in the middle of a mist. I've never had anything wave at me. And while I was affected by Betsy at Yorktown, she snuck up on me.
Yeah.
From the moment Ryan said Lois Higgs' name,
Now there she
said her
goes.
name.
We're not
From
going
the
down
moment
that path
that
again.
Ryan said her name, look at me, I'm a freaking pussy. From the moment
No.
that Ryan said her name, I was being affected by her, which I have, and again, as you can see, it's still happening,
Mhm.
and I don't know why. So that's the three things that I've never had happen since, and you know, it's intense.
And like
Amazing.
I said, if you don't believe in ghosts, go
Go
there.
Waverly Hills.
You will when you leave, or you'll like I said, you'll have had something happen to you, something you can't explain.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you don't have it happen there, you just might not have it happen. You know?
You're just not that
Mhm.
lucky one to have it.
So,
happen
any
to you.
final questions or anything that we need to answer for you guys? Was there anybody who was just, oh my God, what is this? That maybe we can answer, or if not, maybe
Mhm.
they were just entertained by the stories, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's all right as well. I mean, we'll give them a second to roll in a question because I know from us talking to getting to them, there might be a little bit of a lag time.
Mhm.
So, but no, I think y'all have told me some of these stories over the last few weeks. There was a couple in there that I don't think y'all had told me yet. So I'm super stoked to get in there. Just to experience. I mean, as we said in the beginning, it's a paranormal investigator's dream. You know, I mean, if you're anywhere in the paranormal world as an investigator, this is the mecca. This is the
If you want to
especially
call
in the
yourself a
United
real
States.
paranormal investigator, you need to be at Waverly Hills at some point. You
Oh,
need to
absolutely.
be at Yorktown at some point. You need to be at Trans-Allegheny at some point.
Yes.
You need to go to Pennhurst at some point if you
West
want.
Virginia Penn,
We'll tell you about West
Oh,
Virginia
yeah.
Penn too.
Ohio State
That's a
Reformatory.
whole nother
Ohio State
episode,
Reformatory
though.
will tell you about that too. Oh my God, Bobby Mackey's will tell you about that too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Those
Not
are all
tonight, though.
up. Yeah, those are all upcoming episodes. Well, we don't have any questions rolling in, so
Fantastic. So just let me say thank you to my partners in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts, without whom I definitely wouldn't be having as much fun as I am now.
very
So,
true. Ditto.
so for me, I'm Shelley
Absolutely.
Pruitt. Thank you so much for watching Everything Vaguely Paranormal, and we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.